is, they always say start low, that way you can build yourself up over time. I think I started a little too high, but we'll see what happens today. So one of the things that I noticed while in grad school is that some of the seminary students were really discouraged. It's not uncommon. And one of the things that I heard one of the seminary students say was that they didn't know if the church was good anymore. Like they were really discouraged about what the church was doing, and maybe we should just tear it down and figure something else out. And like I said, it's not uncommon for grad students and college students to become disillusioned about their faith and God and the church while they go through their studies. It's a very common thing. Now, the answer to that isn't, well, let's stop education. Like, let's pull back. Maybe we shouldn't send our good Christian kids off to college. But instead, if we can teach them to not stop at the questioning, but to push through to the answers, because that's really where God can step in and really help to take their faith from a point of just all questions to a point of maturity and understanding about what the church is. Myself being an extremely mature Christian, when I heard someone bad-mouthing the church, I wanted to be like, how dare you? You don't understand. I come from a tradition that highly praises the local church and understands that this is how God and Jesus are reaching his people. This is the bride of Christ. This is how we edify, encourage, educate, and strengthen the body. This is Jesus' feet and hands to the community. How dare you think that cutting off Jesus' feet and hands to the community is the way to go? And I had built up with righteous anger and just wanted to my fellow student, you are wrong. And God was like, wait. His question to me was, who really needs defending here? Does God need defending? Do I need to defend the church, and do I need to defend God? Because in truth, when we look at who defends who, it's usually the stronger, or it should be the stronger person, the larger person, the person with more honor in life. They should be stepping in and defending the person that is weaker and with less honor. So in my stepping forward and saying, how dare you, am I saying, God, you are weaker than me, that I think you're not as strong as me, that you need defending? Am I putting God in a box and saying, I got this, God, don't worry, I'm strong, it's okay? Or am I saying that God demands that his subjects, even though he's really strong and powerful, that he wants to control his people to the point of saying, you can die for me? Because last time I checked, Jesus died for us, so that doesn't make sense. So I don't need to defend God to demonstrate his power either. Instead, I think that I was being deceived in the thinking that as the weaker vessel, as just, his sheep, that I needed to defend my shepherd. And it's not wrong, it's just not how it's supposed to be. Because what does it mean to be Christians? And I think about this whenever I get that bulldog mentality of I want to point my finger and I want to yell and shake this ever-loving sense into them. And I have to remember that I'm not a sheepdog, I'm a sheep. And in fact, if we look at, because I always have to go back to historical and biblical references, if you look at what dogs looked like in ancient Israel, there were no sheepdogs. They didn't have dogs that were out in the fields with the shepherds tending the flocks. And instead, what dogs were they were menaces, basically. They would roam the towns and eat garbage and just be a nuisance. So why would I want to be a sheepdog? That job never existed in the time of Jesus. And to be a defender or a defending dog, that would be I was defending my own kind, and I was hurting people that I shouldn't be hurting. It's not a good thing to be. And as Jesus, as our shepherd, he's actually the one that takes on that role. He's the one that defends. That's why he says, rod and my staff, they comfort me, is because he's there with the rod and the staff. The staff pulls the sheep in, and the rod beats the ever-loving stuffing out of whatever's coming against them. He's there to defend. And so how did we see Jesus actually defending his church, defending his people while he was here? Because he is our example. He's always our example. We should always go back. And we see time and time again, he uses parables and stories. So that way his people could understand, because he would then go on and explain, like, this is what I meant when I said. And the Pharisees, who would just get upset by what he was saying, would leave before the explanation. So he would be protecting and defending his people with the truth. And he would be scaring off the Pharisees because they didn't understand. And we know this because he would say, whenever he would give like a parable, he would say, he who has ears to hear, let them hear. And this was kind of a note of like, with the Holy Spirit, we can understand what Jesus is trying to say to us, what parables and what truths he's trying to say to us. And if we stick around as the Holy Spirit, Jesus will go ahead and enlighten us so that we understand. And the Pharisees were like, yep, he's crazy, and they would run before they ever knew the truth to what Jesus was actually saying. He was defending us, and he defended us in a graceful, calm, and peaceful way. In Luke 22, verses 67 to 71, we even see the point at which he's arrested. So Jesus, this is after he's been praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the end of his life. He's, poured out blood from his pores. He's had that Last Supper with his people. He's been arrested, and now he stands before the Pharisees, the religious elite. I mean, if we were Catholic and we're not, it would basically be us standing before the Pope and going, answer for your crimes. It's a big deal where he is. He's standing in front of this council of Jewish priests and teachers, and they are looking for any way to get him killed. And with the Romans were very, very particular and very specific on reasons to kill the Jews, because the Jews had a very special arrangement with the Romans. And the Romans could decide to kill a Jew and to kill anyone because they were in charge, but for a Jewish priest to come and say, can you go ahead and get this guy out of our hair, he's a problem, they had to have had enough reason, and that reason is blasphemy. He's blaspheming the religion, so let's get him out. And then the Romans would say, okay, yes, let's do that for you. We can handle that. So what they're trying to do here is get Jesus to sign his own death warrant. And so they ask him, if you're the Messiah, just tell us. Just be open about it. Just tell us. It's kind of like the kids that get stopped by the cops, or they're selling drugs, and they're like, if you're a cop, you have to tell me. Like, if you're the Messiah, you have to tell us. Like, Jesus is like, are you kidding? Jesus answers them with their direct question, says, if I tell you, you won't believe me. And if I asked you, you wouldn't answer. So he's saying that even if I told you the truth, that I am the Messiah, you would still think I was lying. And even if I asked you if I was the Messiah, you would just walk away. You wouldn't answer me. So what's the point on me answering? But from now on, he goes on to say, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. So Jesus is not claiming to be the Messiah to them, but what he is saying is basically, we both know what we know. I know I'm the Messiah. You know that I think that I'm the Messiah. And in saying that, I am now going to prophesy to you that the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. So there. But I will not admit it. I will not sign my death warrant. If you want to kill me, that is your prerogative, not mine. And then they ask him, well, are you the Son of God? If you're not willing to say that you're Messiah, at least admit that you're the Son of God. We have plenty of people running around in that time period saying that they're sons of gods because, well, the Romans and the Greeks, they had a plethora of gods. And if you were really good at something, sometimes you might be, say, or if your mom was a single mom, they would be like, well, yeah, because that child was a child of a god, and that's why I'm single. It's not because I had relations outside of marriage. It's because that's a child of God. So, just admit that you're the son of God, right? And Jesus says, you say that I am. And Jesus is always trying to give them an out, he never defends himself. He never says, how dare you not believe? How dare you? These are all the proofs and evidences. These are all the prophecies I've already fulfilled. These are the ones I'm going to fulfill. Like, you have the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. You have all of these. Then you have all the prophets and all the writings. There's so many prophecies about my coming, to the point where there are people that are specially trained and have been spending years just looking for the evidence and the proof that I am going to come. And Jesus is like, I'm not going to say any of that. You say that I am God, or you say that I'm the Son of God. I didn't. So if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. And it's all because his actions should speak louder than his words. So if our shepherd makes no attempt to physically or verbally defend the work he has been doing by raising the dead, by healing the sick and the injured, by releasing them of the demons that they had, Jesus helped to build his church through demonstration, and that's throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. Let me just show you. I'm just going to run through some verses really quick. So in 1 Peter 3:9, it says, do not repay evil for evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because this you were called, so that you may inherit a blessing. Deuteronomy 32:35, it is mine to avenge, says the Lord. I will repay in due time. Their foot will slip. Their day of disaster is near, and their doom rushes upon them. Leviticus 19:18 says, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Proverbs 20:22 says, do not say, I will pay back for this wrong. Wait for the Lord, and he will avenge you. 1 Peter 2:21-23 says, to this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow his steps. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. Which is tough, because God's just is a final just. So that means that it's going to come with the great white throne of judgment. It's not going to come next Tuesday when I want it to, because I'm going to see them again. It's going to come in God's timing, and God is also a God of reconciliation. So what I depict as justice might not be what God sees as justice, and that's a really hard thing to accept. We can all, and I'll say, like, all the time, I'm like, no, that, like, God's a just God, and it's great, and I love him, and it's amazing. But when I know that the evilest of evils could repent and go to heaven, and I should rejoice in that, that's a really tough call. But knowing that not only is that for what we would consider the most evil of evil, it's for us too. All we need to do is repent and turn to God, and we get the reward. We don't have to stand before the white throne of judgment and worry. We can be excited, and that's pretty cool too. So it also, God not only defends us in those little things, he defended us throughout all of time. In fact, he was constantly defending his people. The Ark of the Covenant, which was this big shiny golden box with some angels on it. If you've seen like Indiana Jones, you know it's all shiny, electrifies, and you know the wrong people that touched it would drop down dead. And this was supposed to be the mercy seat of God. When it was in the tent, it would, or in the tabernacle, which is a huge tent, it would be where God's very presence would come and rest, and he would meet with his people. And this was where God came and showed mercy and love, and this would be a symbol of his presence. And we have God in us, so we should be the symbol of his presence wherever we go. That's a side note. But so they would take the Ark of the Covenant, and the people God would send them into battle, but he wouldn't send them into battle first. He would send the Ark of the Covenant in first. So he's saying, I'm going before you to defend you. You're going to take this land. You're going to fight these people, but I have already gone before you. I'm not making you do this alone. I'm not a king that stands in the background and lets my people get slaughtered. Instead, I'm going to go before. I'm going to take out the hardest and the toughest guys, and then you guys can come and wipe up and get all the loot, and we're going to have a great party after, because they usually killed like all of the cattle, and they had a huge sacrifice and huge barbecue at the end. It's great times. So we also then see this is another famous version of this, in 2 Kings chapter 6, there was this king of Aram, which is an enemy king, and he was at war with the Israelites, and he set up camp, and he's like, we're going to set an ambush for the Israelites. They're going to come right by, and we're going to attack them. And the Israelites never came because Elisha went to the king of Israel and said, they're going to be right over that ridge, so let's go the long way. And so the king of Israel went the long way, and the king of Aram was like, that's weird. So he moved camp to ambush the Israelites again. And the prophet Elisha was like, so they're over there now? So what we need to do is just go that way. And so the Israelites went that way, and the king of Aram is like, that wasn't the plan. Let's move camp again. So they moved camp again. And again, the prophet Elisha goes, they keep moving. This is weird. But they're over here now, so let's go ahead and move over here. And again, the king of Israel went around, and this ambush never went off. And the king of Aram was really angry, because he's like, we just were going to capture them, and it would kill them, and it was going to be fine, it was going to be great, we were going to have a great time. But no, like, there has to be a spy in my midst. One of my leaders is going over to the Israelite king and telling them where we are, so that way they can avoid us. And all of the leaders, rightfully so, go, oh, that's not good for us. So actually, no, king, none of us here are spies, because if he thought that any of them were spies and no one said anything, all of them are dead. Because those kings were like, we like results and we like them with blood. So the king was like, well, if it's not any of you, prove to me who it is. And so they're like, well, there's this prophet dude over on the Israelite side, really accurate, great prophecies, good times. But he keeps on telling that king where you are, so they avoid us. So the king of Aram is like, okay, so you go tell me where this prophet is, because I want him now. So they sent out spies. They find out where Elijah is. He's in this little town with his servants. And once the king of Aram finds out, he sends his whole army over and surrounds the town. And this story I always see as them being in an open field with, Elijah and his servant on a rock looking out at everything. But no, they're in the middle of a town, so there's buildings and everything. And his servant hears about the army, and they're probably in a room, and Elijah's, I now just picturing eating breakfast, and his servant's like, but the army is surrounding town. And he's like, yeah, these are great eggs too. That's what I was thinking. And because Elijah. And the servant's like, no, we're really in deep trouble. And Elijah just goes, don't be afraid. And then he prays to God, and he says in verse 17, open his eyes, Lord, so that way he may see. And then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked up at the hills surrounding the town, and there were just chariots and horses, and the chariots were on fire. And this was the whole army of God surrounding the army of the enemy, while Elijah and his servants were in the middle of town, completely protected, even though they were completely surrounded. And Elijah probably finished his breakfast and basically asked Lord to go ahead and blind the army. And the entire army was blinded. And he goes out and he goes to the army, and they have no idea who he is because they can't see him. They're all blind, and they're like, you're in the wrong place. Let me take you to the correct place. So he leads the entire army of the enemy to the king of Israel and basically said, okay, they don't need to be blind anymore. And the enemy was now surrounded not only by God's kingdom, God's heavenly hosts, but also by the very physical army of the Israelites. So God is always protecting in the most spectacular ways. No bloodshed was needed to capture an entire army. One dude just walked him down the road. Sure. Gotta love Elijah. He's good times, good times. Always ask for the double blessing. So as a Christian, we're not supposed to be defending God, because God can defend himself. He's always defended himself. He's always defended his people, and he's always defended his church. So what are we supposed to do instead? Matthew 22:37-40 says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second one is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. So what I believe is that we need to stop trying to defend the church, stop trying to defend God, and just start being the church and start being the children and followers of God. And that means following these two basic commandments are really will encompass all of the other commandments, all the other laws that are in there, because if you love your neighbor as yourself, you're doing all of the other things as well. And this is also where our society comes up with the golden rule, which is like do unto others as you would want them to do unto you, which seems like, okay, just go play nice. Don't hit them because they'll hit you back. Like it's an eye for the eye. But if you ever really thought about what that actually would mean, is that if I ever thought that I would be in need and I would like or I would wish that someone would come and help me, would swoop me and scoop me up out of my problems, if I had a want or really just expected something of someone else, that would mean that I would then should allow someone to expect that of me too, which is, you're like, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. But when you start thinking about the things that you're expecting of other people, I expect them to be fast and kind and do everything right on time. Like, do I always do that? Nope. I've worked many, many years in customer service, and I've seen people get angry at me for not being faster than I am capable, for not being able to provide what's not available. So when I go into a store now, I make sure that I don't expect that of them, that I try to be as kind as possible. I also, and I haven't always been this way, because in Bible college, I'm like, I'm gonna help anyone. If someone asks me for something, I'm gonna do it, because like that's just gonna be my way of laying down my life and helping whoever. So if you have the courage to ask me for something, I would do it. I would give it to you. I would find a way. And being in a bunch of college students, a lot of times it was a financial problem that they were having. And I had a full-time job, and I was going to school full-time, and so I usually had more money than a lot of the students. So like I would overhear them saying like, oh, they don't have enough money for books, or they don't have enough money for food, and I'd be like, I can slip you a 20. Like I can make sure you have the books that you need for class, and I can do those things because that's what I feel like God has me here for. And then I got word that people realized that this is what I was doing, and someone's like, if you ever need something, just mention it in the presence of Colleen and she'll get it for you. And it made me so angry that someone was trying to take advantage of the blessings that I was trying to give out. And then I got mad at myself. I'm like, why are you angry that someone realizes that you are blessing people and they want that? Like, of course they want that. That's God, that's Jesus in you. And it took me years to really come to terms with that, because at that point, like, I just shut down. I closed my wallet. I'm just like, I'm done. Like, if you want to take advantage of me, you better find someone else. And I feel horrible about that, because clearly if you're trying to take advantage of someone who is willingly giving, they need more than just what I'm willing to give. I need to be able to start praying for them. Or maybe it was out of sheer like, I can't help you, but if I let you know who can, I'm giving you the resources you need. They were passing on a blessing, and I was holding back, and I feel so horrible that I was prideful and arrogant and shut down. I shut down God's blessing to other people because I wasn't going by the golden rule. I would have loved to be able to go up to someone and be like, hey, I really just need, and them give me willingly. But I couldn't do that to others because I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted it to be random. I wanted it to be Jesus. But it was Jesus. It just wasn't how I expected him. Also, before that, when I worked at a gas station, barely making minimum wage. I was about to move across country to Yellowstone National Park and to live there for the summer. And I was paying rent, and I was trying to save money, and the only reason I was making more than minimum wage was because I was working overnights. And this young woman comes in, and she's like, I left my wallet at home. I'm not gonna have enough gas to get there. Like, please, can anything will help. And she's like, I'll even come back tomorrow and pay you back. And I'm not dumb. I'm like, she's probably won't ever come back. And I was the only one at the gas station, so I'm like, okay. So I go to the ATM, and I pull out a 24, and I give it to her, and I'm like, I'll be here, I work here tomorrow, same time, so if you come back, like, I'll be here. And I learned a principle early on that is, if you give a gift or if you give a loan, that it's not a loan, it's a gift. If they pay you back, they pay you back, especially if they're a Christian. And I have to be willing to know that I may never see that $20 again. I could have really used that gas money too, because I was going to be moving. But did I hope that she was going to come back the next day? Yes, because I would. I love to see when people keep their word and keep their promises. Did she? No, and I'm okay with that, because even if she didn't need the money and she was just trying to get the money, I was helping her for all the right reasons. I was helping her because she seemed to be in need, and I had the resources to be able to do it. I was in the right place at the right time for her. And maybe later on in life, if it was out of ill contempt, like, that she'll know that there are people in the world that are good, that I can reach out to, that will help. And it also means that I can think that if I'm in a hard place, if I'm struggling, maybe there's someone in the world too that God is going to help and use to help me, so I don't have to be so fearful. I don't have to be so worried all of the time, because That is a huge concern. Finances are just always a huge concern for a lot of kids in college. And, if I can be that assistance, I would like to be. And God often reminds me of these moments where I just need to stop what I'm doing, what I want to do, and consider how I can make someone else's day a little bit better, or help them smile, make them laugh, because those are those little golden moments. Because if I'm having a rough day, I might not look like I want to smile or make it better. I want to wallow, please. let me wallow in my anger and stuff. But once I'm out of it, I'm so thankful for the people that have walked beside me through those hard moments, and that have helped me in the laughter and helped me in those. And the world will call them like random acts of kindness, and I say they're not random at all. These are acts of God that happen, and we just think they're random because we don't do it enough. If we start being the church, we could easily tell who is the Christian and who is not, because we would be the ones that are doing random acts of kindness, because God constantly wants us to love our neighbors as ourselves. And yeah, I have self-esteem issues, and I'm working on loving myself better, but maybe if I can figure out how to love my neighbor, I can love myself better too. It goes both ways. So what I would just ask is, as we took communion today, that is a way for us to remember all that Jesus has done, the blood and his sacrifice there, the body that he's broken. We do that to help trigger our memory and everything that we know about Jesus and God. We do that. So whenever I'm trying to change my habits, I try to create something else that will trigger my memory so I remember, because habits are really hard for me to create. So what I ask is that as you walk through any doorway, and let that be that trigger for you, of as you walk through a doorway, just pray the simple prayer of, show me someone that you want me to help. And it's not like CPR type of help. This is the help of just a smile and a wave, like, good morning, or can I get that off a tall shelf for you, or just anything that God shows you, just to help you encounter moments where you can show the love of God, and that way you don't have to defend God this way. You can defend God by giving, by doing what he would do, and feeding his people and loving them. So that's what I just asked today. Lord, as we go out today, as we go through every doorway, let us encounter people that we can help in any capacity. With a simple smile, a simple thank you is sometimes enough to change someone's day, Lord. And I ask that we can continue that throughout the week and just see the difference in the community, that your moments of kindness and love through us, Lord, can really change. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.